rest of you have got pen and paper. You don't necessarily need a calculator, but if you do have pen and paper and you're able to write all of this down, that would be really, really great as well. Okay, so let's get started with our second to last lesson on exponents. Today, what we're going to be speaking about is exponential form and the meaning of exponents other than just squares and cubes, which are the two sort of types of exponents that we've looked at now. All right, so when something is written in exponential form, it is a way of writing repeated multiplication with the same number. That's what we are doing. And we call the number that is being multiplied by itself, we call that number the base. All right, so in this situation over here, 3 is the base. And the number of times that 3 is being multiplied with itself, we call that the exponent. And these two together are referred to as a power. Right, so very important that we know these words because I'm going to use this language as will your teacher at school. So it's important that you understand what your teacher is saying to you or what I'm saying to you. So if we talk about 3 to the power of 5, I don't want to know what the answer is, but what does that mean? What does it mean? Put your hands up. What does 3 to the power of 5 mean? Okay, Tabani, your hand was up first. What does it mean? Can you unmute yourself, Tabani? Okay, Tabani, I can't hear you. Okay, Motabang, what does it mean? What does 3 to the power of 5 mean to you?
He said it in the chat. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Sorry. It means?
It means it's timesing itself 5 times.
Okay. So in other words, it means I've got to take the number 3 and multiply it by itself and by itself again. Just move that out the way. And then by itself one more time. And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and by itself one more time. That's what it means. Okay, so here you can see that exponential notation is repeated multiplication with the same number. So in this case, 3 is being multiplied with itself 5 times. All right, so now if we have a look at the numbers on the right-hand side, I would write, if I didn't want to write it out in full or in long way, if I wanted to write it in a shorter way, in 6.1, how would I write that using exponential notation? Devin, I'm going to ask you, how would I write that?
Sorry, ma'am, I didn't hear you.
Okay, so I want to write 6.1 as a power or using exponential notation. How should I write question 6.1? What should I do?
(15 to the power of 8).
Lovely. Okay, so as 15, that's the base to the power of 8. Okay, so in other words, I am saying I'm multiplying 15 by itself 8 times. Lovely. Let's try someone else. Let's see who is next. Anati, you do the next one for us. How am I going to write 6.2 using exponential notation?
12 to the power of 12.
12 to the power of 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Lovely. Okay, so in this case, the base is 12 and the exponent is 12. Good. Now, some numbers can be written as a power of 2 or 3 or 5 or 10. Right. So in this particular case here, I'm going to take 125. Can I write that as 2 to the power of something? Is it possible for me to do that with 125? Motiban, what do you think?
I thought that sorry, ma'am, I accidentally pressed it.
That's all right. No worries. Anybody know how I can write 125 as a power? Takalani? Oh, no, actually, let's give Natasha a chance. Natasha, how would I write 125 as a power?
Is it 5 to the power of 3?
It's 5 to the power of 3. Well done, Natasha.
Thank you.
Okay, lovely, good. So I can't write it with a base of 2 or with a base of 3, but I can write it with a base of 5. So 125 is 5 to the power of 3. Let's see who's up next. Okay, so maybe somebody else, nobody's put their hand up yet. How would I write 64 as a power? Kuhle konke?
You would say 4 to the power of 3.
4 to the power of 3, fair enough. But if I'm only allowed to use a 2 or a 3 or a 5 or a 10 as a base, how would that change my answer? If I can't write it as 4 to the power of 3, it is 4 to the power of 3, but I'm not allowed to use a 4. I've got to use a 2 or a 3 or a 5 or a 10. What would I do then? Do you know, Kuhle Konke?
Ma'am, can you explain that again?
That's fine. So in other words, you've written 64 as 4 to the power of 3. Now, what I'm saying to you is imagine that you're not allowed to use 4 as the base. You've got to use a different base. You've got to use base 2. You've got to use 2 as a base. How is that going to change our answer?
Ma'am, I don't understand.
Okay, so in other words, 64 can be written as 4 to the power of 3. It can also be written as 8 to the power of 2. But there's one other way in which there's, I'm just asking you the different ways I can write it. So I can write it as 8 to the power of 2, but I can also write it as 2 to the power of something. Does anybody know? 2 to the power of what? Devon? 2 to the power
2 to the power of 8, ma'am.
2 to the power of 8. Okay, and how did you know that, Devon? Are you sure it's 8?
I guessed, ma'am.
No, I don't think 8 is correct.
It's not 8. It's not 8.
No, it's not 8. It's close, but it's not 8. And Tekelo says 2 to the power of 6. Absolutely. 2 to the power of 6. So there would be a way for us to be able to work that out though, right? Because we've got 4 to the power of 3. All right. So what does 4 to the power of 3 mean? It means 4 times 4 times 4, doesn't it? But we know that 4 is 2 times 2. And we know that this 4 over here would be times another 2 by 2. And this 4 over here would be times by another 2 by another 2. So how many times am I multiplying 2 by itself? I can count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I can write it as 2 to the power of 6 as well. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? All right, now I want to write 100 as a power. How can I write 100 as a power? Let's see who's got their hands up. Let's ask Amila. Amila, how am I going to write 100 as a power?
Isn't it 10 times 10, ma'am?
It is, but you've got to write it in exponential form, Amila. That's quite right. So you would write it as 10 to the power of?
10.
10 to the power of?
10.
10. Okay, but hang on a second. That means 10 times 10 times 10. I'm multiplying 10 by itself 10 times. Okay, that's not going to give me 100. That's going to give me a number that's much, much bigger than 100. Okay, so there's got to be another exponent, a different exponent. Let's see, Bonolo.
2.
2 to the power of 2, absolutely. Good, Bonolo, well done. All right, so you would write this as 10 to the power of 2. Now, if somebody came along and said that you had to write 100 as a power using 2 and 5, what would we do then? Does anybody know? How else could I write 100? If I wasn't allowed to use 10, what would I do? I'm going to ask Lesedi. Lesedi, do you know? Maybe Lesedi doesn't know. Karabo, do you know?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, how else could you write 100 using base 2 and base 5?
10 times 10, ma'am.
10 times 10, but then you're still using a base 10. Okay, so what I'm saying to you, Karabo, is you need to change the base. So in other words, you're not allowed to write 10 anymore. Just like in this question 3.2, we could write it with base 4 or base 8 or base 2. I want to change the base.
Ma'am,
Charlotte, what do you think?
it's 10 to the power of 5.
10 to the power of 5, it can't be. 10 to the power of 2 cannot be equal to 10 to the power of 5 because the one means 10 times 10 and the other one means 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, so they can't have the same value. 10 to the power of 3, it can't be. Let's see who else has got their hand up. Bonolo.
Ma'am, I'm not sure, but I think
Ma'am, can I please say that?
Okay, but Tabiso, you mustn't interrupt other people, Tabiso. You must put your hand up. Okay, so Tabiso, talk. Tabiso, go for it.
2 to the power of 5, ma'am.
2 to the power of 5. You're getting closer, but 2 to the power of 5 is not going to give us 100. Look here, if I have 2 to the power of 5, that means 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times 2 is 8, and 8 times 2 is 16, and 16 times 2 is 32. So that's not going to work either in this case. Amogelang, how else could I write 100? Do you know?
I think it's 2 to the power of 10.
Shane, this is a difficult one. Okay, now look at this. All right, now you can write 10 as 2 times 5, can't you? 2 times 5 is 10. So that means that you can write 10 squared as 2 times 5 to the power of 2. So that means 2 to the power of 2 times 5 to the power of 2. And how do we know that this works? Well, because 2 to the power of 2 is 4. And 5 to the power of 2 is 25. And 4 times 25 will leave us with 100. So that's the other way that we could write it. Does that make sense? Now we can write 10 in a different way. All right, we can write 10 as 2 times 5 instead of as...
Ma'am, I don't understand.
What don't you understand, Bonolo?
Ma'am, how do we write that?
But you know that 2 times 5 is 10, don't you, Bonolo?
I know, ma'am.
Okay, so then if I've got 10 to the power of 2 and I write 10 as 2 times 5 to the power of 2, all I've done is I've just changed the way in which I've written 10. So I'm just showing you something else that is also going to be true, that this is the same as taking 2 and giving it the same exponent that it had before, which was a power of 2. Okay. And then keeping your times 5. And then also giving it an exponent of 2.
Oh.
Okay. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so I'm just rewriting 10 squared in a different way. 10 squared means the same as 2 times 5 squared. And 2 times 5 squared is the same as 2 squared times 5 squared.
Right.
Okay, because I'm multiplying, that's why I'm allowed to do that. Okay.
Okay.
All
Okay, ma'am.
right.
Thank you.
Yes, so this was a little bit of a more difficult question and probably not something that your teachers would discuss with you in grade 7, but I think it's always nice to be able to show you things that you might not necessarily learn at school and just kind of extend ourselves a little bit. All right, so now I've seen in the chat, there's lots of answers to question 3.4. If I wanted to write 1,000 in exponential form, how would I do that? Kilo. How could I write 1,000 as a power into kilo?
That's 10 times 3.
Not 10 times 3, 10 to the power of?
3.
3, that's it, into kilo. Well done. Okay, so I can write that as 10 to the power of 3. And you know, I could do exactly the same thing with this question that I did with 3.3. I can rewrite 10 as 2 times 5, and I can raise that to the power of 3. And look here, grade 7s, that also means 2 to the power of 3 times 5 to the power of 3. How do I know that this actually makes sense and it works out? Well, 2 to the power of 3 is 8, because it's 2 times 2 times 2. 5 to the power of 3 is 5 times 5 times 5, which is 125. And 8 times 125 is going to give me 1,000. Okay, so I can do a similar thing with 3.4 that I could do with 3.3 as well. You're going to see when you go to high school, being able to split numbers up like this is going to be really, really, really important to you. Okay, so now let's work on writing a number in exponential notation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you guys try these questions, and then Kat and I are going to give you 4 minutes, and then we're going to mark them. So in each case, you are going to write the number in exponential notation. So that means you have to write it with a base and with an exponent. Okay, so the first one is the 5th power of 5. The second one, the 6th power of 5. The third one, the 3rd power of 4. And then 9.46 to the power of 4. All right, so you guys try those. And Kat and I are going to, as I said, Kat and I will give you 4 minutes. And then we'll talk about our answers.
No.
Then maybe when you finish, you can put a smiley face, or you can say done in the chat, and then we know that you finished. Cool, Devin, well done. We're going to mark them now. Cool, Tabani, well done, Lekona. Nice, Rana. Watabang, you finished. Bulela's done, Banolo's done, Aziz is done, Tahila's done, Tersha's done, Mercedes done, Mpulusa's done, Amokhalang, Reitu's done, Gift. All right. So, Gift, I'm going to call on you. In the case of 9.1, what did you write, Gift? What was your answer for? For 9.1, Gift? Gift, you were busy writing long messages in the chat earlier. Now when I'm asking you for answers, you're not saying anything. Are you pretending you can't hear me, Gift? Okay. Oh, okay. Devin, let's ask you, how did you write 9.1?
Ma'am, I wrote it as 5 times 5 times 5 times 5 times 5.
Absolutely. But if you're writing it in exponential notation, that means you need to write it as 5 to the power of
5.
5. Good. Okay, so the fifth power of 5 means 5 multiplied by itself 5 times, which is 5 to the power of 5. Cool beans, well done. Motsibang, the 6th power of 5, what does that mean? How would you write that in exponential notation?
I would say 6 to the power of 5.
Oh, see, now this is why we're doing this particular question. All right, so now we've got to ask ourselves, what does this mean? If we're talking about the 6th power of 5, does it mean 6 to the power of 5, or does it mean 5 to the power of 6?
Oh, sorry, ma'am. I think it's 5 to the
Which
power
one
of
do
6.
which one do you think it is, Gift? Sorry, Motibang.
I think the second one, 5 to the power of
It's the
6.
6th. That's right. Okay, so when they talk about the 6th power of 5, they are implying that 5 is the base and 6 is going to be the exponent. Well done. All right, lovely. Good job. Yes.
Ma'am, can I please answer? 9.3.
9.3. Sure, go for it.
4 times 4.
Yes. Good. And if you've got to write that using an exponent, you would write that as?
4 to the power of 3.
Lovely. Well done. That's perfect. Good job. Aziza, do you want to do 9.4?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Aziza, go for it.
6 to the power of 4.
Okay, so perfect. So I would write that as 6 to the power of 4, just like that. Patson, I know we didn't do this one together, or you didn't do it by yourself, but let's do this one together. So Patson, how would I write 4 to the power of 6? Which one is the base? Is 4 the base or is 6 the base? If I say 4 to the power of 6, which one is the base?
Ma'am, 4 is the base.
4 is the base. Good. And 6 is the,
6 is the
exponent. Exactly. Okay, so very important with our language there, we've got to understand what they mean, because big question here, if I say 6 to the power of 4, or I say 4 to the power of 6, are these two things equal? Is it the same? Is it the
Yes.
same, Amila?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
It's the same.
Yes.
Okay, so is it the same with all exponents then? So if I say something like this, if I say 3 to the power of 2, is that going to be the same as 2 to the power of 3? Is that the same thing?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
No. Yes.
Okay, so Bonolo says yes. Is there anybody who says no?
Banzi in the chat said no.
Who in the chat said no?
Banzi.
Bunzi. Okay, so Bunzi, you said no. Why did you say no, Bunzi? Bunzi, can you explain why you said no?
3 times 3.
Okay, so Natasha, you also said no. Natasha, why did you say no? I want you to tell us. Why did you say this is not the same?
Because if you take 3 to the power of 2, you're going to get 9. And if you take 3 to the power of 3, you're not going to get the same answer.
Absolutely, Natasha. All right. So I'm really, really glad that you said that. So when we write a power, it doesn't necessarily mean the same thing both way around. So 6 to the power of 4 is not necessarily the same as 4 to the power of 6. We're not going to get the same answer every single time. All right. There may be some instances where we do, and those are few and far between. The ones where I know where we definitely do get the same, Kat, help me here. I know with 4 to the power of 2, we get 16. And 2 to the power of 4,
Yes.
we also get 16, but that's the only one that I can think of where we would actually, where we would get the same, answer. Okay, so that's really, really important, grade 7s. If we just switch the base and switch the exponent, it doesn't necessarily mean the same thing. Okay, so 6 to the power of 5 is not the same as 5 to the power of 6, or 4 to the power of 3 is not the same as 3 to the power of 4. When we end up doing repeated multiplication and we work out these answers, we're going to see that they're not actually the same. So don't make the assumption and thinking that they are. Now that kind of leads us on to the next thing. We've got to be able to compare numbers in exponential form. So on the left-hand side, oh, hang on a second, there's people with their hands up. Okay, so I don't know if these are questions, but let's just find out. Devin, do you want to ask a question?
No, ma'am, I forgot my hand was raised.
Oh, okay, David, no problem. And Anati, do you want to ask a question?
There's a mistake.
Where's there a mistake?
No, I raised my hand by mistake.
Oh, your hand's up by mistake. Oh, okay. All right, that's fine. And Tabani, your hand was also up. Was that also a mistake? And Karabo, I see your hand is also up. Is it also supposed to be down? I just don't want anybody to think. Yes, Karabo?
Ma'am, I want to answer 1.1, ma'am.
Do you? Okay, that's awesome. Go for it. Which one is bigger then, Karabo? 2 to the power of 5 or 5 to the power of 2? Which one's bigger?
Ma'am, I think 2 to the power of 5, ma'am.
You think that one's bigger?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What does 2 to the power of 5 mean, Karabo? How would you work out the answer to that? If I said to you, how much is 2 to the power of 5? What would you do?
10. Ma'am,
What does 2 to the power of 5 mean?
2 times 2
Mm-hmm.
times 2
Mm-hmm.
times 2
Yes.
times 2.
Excellent. And how much would that give you, Karabo?
25, ma'am.
Wouldn't give you 25 because 2 times 2 is 4 and 4 times 2 is 8.
Oh,
And
10,
8
ma'am.
times, no, because then that would be 5 times 2. And 2 to the power of 5 and 2 times 5 are not the same thing. So remember, 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 times 2 is 32. Okay. Now
Yes,
let's
ma'am.
go and have a look. Now let's go and have a look at the 5 squared, or 5 to the power of 2. What does that mean? 5 to the power of 2 means
5 times 5, ma'am.
5 times 5. Good. And 5 times 5 is
10.
5 plus 5 is 10, but 5 times
5
5
times
is
5 is 25.
25.
absolutely, absolutely. So which one is bigger? 2 to the power of 5 or 5 to the power of 2?
2 to the
2
power of 5.
of 5 is bigger, absolutely. Okay, so they are not necessarily the same thing. 2 to the power of 5 is bigger than 5 to the power of 2. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. Motaban, your hand was up. Which one's bigger, 3 to the power of 4 or 4 to the power of 3?
Ma'am, I thought of answering 1.3.
Oh, okay, then I'll come back to you. Blessing, can you do 1.2? Blessing, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. No, I raised my hand so that I can answer number 1, the first one.
Oh, okay, so do you not know what to do for number 1.2?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but tell me, Blessing, what does 3 to the power of 4 mean?
It means 3 times 2. I mean 3 times 3
Uh-huh.
and 3 times 3.
Okay. And I tell you what, Blessing, before you run away, what is 3 times 3?
9.
Aha, lovely. So 3 times 3 is 9. And what's 9 times 9?
81.
Beautiful. Okay, now I don't want you to go anywhere, okay, because you're doing so well. I want you to stay with me and I want you to tell me, what does 4 to the power of 3 mean?
It means 4 times 4, 4 times 4.
Oh, lovely. Okay, and if I've got 4 times 4, what do I get?
4 times 4 equals 16.
Beautiful, Blessing. And 16 times 4 gives me?
64.
Lovely. Well done. So you see, you do know the answer because 81 and 64, is 81 bigger, smaller, or equal to 64?
81 is bigger than 64.
It is bigger than 64. Okay, so the crocodile's mouth has to be open to the bigger one. Okay, so you see, you thought you might not know, but when you actually break it down and ask yourself, what does it mean? Then you can work out the answer. Okay, good job. Well done. All right, let's see who else has got their hand up here. Patson, we haven't heard from you this lesson. Patson, I want you to do number 1.3 for me, please. Is 2 to the power of 3 bigger, smaller, or equal to 6 to the power of 1?
Ma'am, 2 to the power of 3 is bigger, ma'am.
Okay, what is 2 to the power of 3 equal to, Patson?
8.
It is. Okay, so 2 to the power of 3 is 8, and 6 to the power of 1 is?
6.
6. Okay, so 8 is bigger than
Bigger.
6. Absolutely. Okay, so again, we can see here, grade 7s, right? That if we swap the base and the exponent, they're not necessarily going to be the same. Okay, so we can't just assume that they are. Now, something else that a lot of people struggle with is this sort of thing over here, especially when they get to high school. Okay, so be careful, don't get confused with addition. Okay, multiplication is repeated addition. Exponents are repeated multiplication, right? So if I want to calculate each of the following, 5 times 5 times 5, I first of all want you to write down what it means. And then I want you to write down what the answer is. So we're going to, Kat and I are going to let you do 11.1 to 11.4 on your own, and then we're going to talk about the answers. Okay. All right, there you go. It's in the middle of the screen. You guys do that now, okay? And then we'll take answers afterwards. Okay, good. Nomtamdazo. Good job, Rana. Good job, Tabani. Well done, Intikelo. Right, Titan's done. Tanweer is done. Okay, Bushe. Rohan is done. Good, Karabo. Okay, Matabang. Well done, Patson.
Ma'am,
Yes, Karabo.
ma'am, when are you gonna start with integers, ma'am?
We are going to start with integers next week. So this is our second to last lesson on exponents. We're going to do exponents today, obviously, and then we're going to do exponents on Wednesday, and then next week on Monday, we're going to start with integers.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, Karabo. All right, so a lot of you seem to be done already, which is really awesome. Let's have a look. Okay, so Pindile. Would you tell us what you wrote for 11.1, please, Pindile? Pindile, you can either unmute or you can put something in the chat. It's up to you. Correct, Rana. Tanweer, you're also
Okay,
right.
I just unmuted.
Oh, okay.
I wrote 125 for 11.1.
Yes, that is correct. Okay, because 5 times
11.2, may I answer that one?
Okay, you can answer that one.
For 11.2, I wrote 3,125.
3,125.
Oh my goodness, I'm wrong.
Ma'am, is that
That's
11.2?
That's 11.2, but hang on a second before we get there. All right, 100%. Okay, so 5 times 5 times 5 is 5 to the power of 3, which is indeed 125. Then in 11.2, 5 times 5 times 5 times 5 times 5 is 5 to the power of 5. And if we take 5 and we
Ma'am.
multiply it by itself 5 times, do we get 3,125?
Ma'am, is it necessary to
Yes.
take 5 to the power of 5?
ma'am.
Yes, so 11.2 means
Yes,
5
ma'am.
to the power of 5. That's correct. Okay, so Pendelia was perfectly correct when she gave us that. Now,
Thank you.
in 11.3, 5 plus 5 plus 5, is it okay if I go, okay, well, this is also 5 to the power of 3. Is that true? Am I allowed to do that?
No,
Patson, what do
No.
you think? Am I
No,
allowed
ma'am.
to do that? Does it mean
No,
the same
ma'am, you can't do
thing?
that. No, ma'am.
I can't do that.
ma'am.
All right. So I can't write repeated addition as an exponent. Okay, that is wrong. All right. I can only write that as 5 times 3. Okay, so multiplication and addition are not the same thing. And in this case, I would get the answer of 15. Okay, please explain
Ma'am?
11. Yes.
Ma'am, may I please answer 11.4?
Sure, Karabo, answer 11.4.
Ma'am, straight answer, ma'am, it's 25, ma'am.
It's 25. Okay, and that's because it is addition. It is not repeated multiplication. So I can write this as 5 times 5 or 25. Okay, absolutely. So very, very important, grade 7s. When we are working with these sorts of questions, we need to make sure that we look at the operations carefully, because adding 5 to itself 5 times is not the same as multiplying 5 by itself 5 times. Okay, so very, very important. We have to read before we answer the question. All right, now someone said, ma'am, please. Yes, Tertia, hands up. Hands need to go up, okay, before you shout out. 11.2, Ompulusa. In 11.2, all right, 5 times 5 times 5 times 5 times 5, right? You are taking 5 and you are multiplying it by itself 5 times. Okay, so a way of looking at that is we know that if we take 5 and multiply it by itself 3 times, we would get 125. If we take 5 to the power of, or 5 times 5, which is 5 to the power of 2, we would get 25. So if we take 125 and we multiply that by 25 as well, we would end up with 3,125 as our answer. So you could do long multiplication in order to be able to work that out if your school did not let you use a calculator. Okay. All right, let's go on and have a look. Okay, so now we've got to arrange numbers in ascending order. So before we get started, what does the word ascending mean? If we want to arrange something in ascending order, it's got a very specific meaning. And I'm asking you, what does it mean? Tabani, what is ascending order?
Ma'am?
Mm-hmm.
Ma'am, I think, ma'am, it's biggest to smallest, ma'am.
Biggest to smallest, I'm afraid that's not what it means. Lekona, what is ascending order?
Ascending order is from smallest to biggest.
It is. And I see a lot of you are putting that in the chat as well. The first person in the chat was Masi Zazi. Well done. Smallest to biggest. Devon said the same. So did Bulela. So did Tertia. Quite right. So ascending order means from the smallest one to the biggest one. So now here you've got some squares, you've got some square roots, you've got some cubes. These are all various types of exponents. So now we're going to arrange them in ascending order from the smallest one to the biggest one. I'm going to let you guys do 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3 on your own, okay? And then Kat and I are going to ask you for your answers. All right. Descending is biggest to smallest, Tertia. That's quite right.
Okay, ma'am.
Aziza, yes, you have to write it as it's shown, okay? So what you can do is you can work out what these answers are, and then when you put them into ascending order, put them in exactly as the way that they're given to you, okay? Okay, I think you're done, Rana. And looks like Motabang is done, and Tabani. And Bulela. Yes, Tertia, 1.3 is difficult, but it's important that we do some difficult questions because we've got to make sure that we can answer the difficult questions so that we can answer them in tests and exams as well. So that one is there to make you think. Oh, Intekelo got lots of smiley faces. That's nice to see, Intekelo. All right, it seems like a lot of you are done by now. I guess that means that we can start going through the answers, which is cool. Okay, let's see who's got a hand up. Motiban, you're the first person with your hand up. Do you want to do 1.1, Motiban?
Yes, ma'am.
Go for it.
The answer is 64. Ma'am, I can't explain.
Okay, so we've got the square root of 64 and we've got the cube root of 64. So which one is the smallest?
Cube root.
The cube root of 64. You see, you can explain. You say you can't, but you can. The cube root of 64. Okay, and then the next biggest one is?
3 to the power of 2.
3 to the power of 2. Lovely. And then the next biggest one is?
The square root of 36.
A lovely, Motabang. You're doing this so beautifully. And then the biggest number is going to be the
square root of 64. The
Beautiful.
square root of 64.
Lovely, Motabang. You've done that perfectly. Well done. That's perfect. 100%. Well done. Good job. Tertia, you wanted to do number 1.2 for us, Tertia?
What the heck?
Ma'am, do you mind if I 1.2 looks tricky?
Okay, you want to do 1.3?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, Tertia, that's fine. Let's find somebody else to do 1.2. Who would like to do 1.2? Karabo, would you like to do 1.2?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Karabo, go for it.
Ma'am, the first one, ma'am, is the square root of 1,000, ma'am.
The square root of 1,000. You mean the cube root of 1,000?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so are you saying, Karabo, that this number over here is the smallest number, the one I've just highlighted in yellow?
That one, ma'am.
Okay, but what is the cube root of 1,000? What is it equal to?
Oh, ma'am, the 7,209, ma'am.
Okay, so the cube root of 729, what's that equal to? Can you remember when we did square and cube roots?
Last week, ma'am. Is it?
Yes, it was last week that we did cube roots. Can you remember what the cube root of 729 is equal to?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so if you remember, if you learn them off by heart, then it's going to make life a lot easier for you. Yes, Linumta, 9 times 9 times 9 is 729. Perfect. So the cube root of 729 is 9. So in other words, the answer to this one over here is 9. The answer to this one over here is 10. All right, so now we've got to work out the value of the other two things. Devin, what did you do for this question?
Ma'am, I can't find the
Yeah.
answer, ma'am.
Okay, what's wrong, Kat?
For 1.1, is it not
Yes.
smallest to biggest?
Yes. What did I do?
3 squared is 9, isn't it? Which is
Yeah, so isn't this
bigger than
of
6
course.
and 8.
Oh, sorry, so that should go there.
Yes.
Sorry, thank you very much. Quite right.
Okay.
Quite right. Sorry,
I'm
no,
sorry for
that is
that.
correct, because this is 4 and that's 6 and that's 8, so then 9
and
should be
then
next. Yes, thank
Sorry,
you.
ma'am, I
Thank
accidentally
you.
said that.
Yes, Motabang, that's fine. I should have also checked carefully. I'm sorry, my apologies. Okay, yes, perfect. Thank you very much.
Cool.
All right, so here the next two are not supposed to be too difficult. The square root of 225 is 15, and 2 squared is 4. So the smallest one is 2 squared. The next biggest one is the cube root of 729. The next biggest one is the cube root of 1,000. And the biggest number here is going to be the square root of 225. I think that was quite a difficult one. All right, so now as far as the last one was concerned, I'm going to let Kat do the answer to that. I think it was Tertia who said she wanted to do that one, Kat. And I will see you guys again on the 20th of April. No, I won't see you on the 20th of April because Kat's going to be teaching you, aren't you, Kat?
Yes, I am.
Yes, okay. And I've got to go off to the grade 11s now. Okay, so bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, Lee.
Bye, thank you.
Bye, ma'am.
Bye, ma'am.